All right, welcome everybody. Thank you for your patience while we got everything set up. We went a little long with the advisory council meeting, so we apologize for that. But we are so happy to have Judi joining us today for our last innovation exchange for the academic year. And she's going to be talking about the reimagining the role of technology in higher education today. And she has been one of our faculty fellows this year. And so this is what she's been sort of sharing all year, and we look forward to hearing what she has to say today. So thanks for joining us.
Good morning, everyone. It's good to see all these smiling faces here and also online. I got to look at everybody online before we got started. I'm really pleased to be here with you today. I have been sharing what I called tech time in the classroom for the workplace. And I did that very intentionally. And I think my rationale for naming my SIG that title will be very clear as we go through looking at a couple of reports that I just want to share with you. And that's where the title Reimagining the Role of Technology in Higher Ed came from, was a report from the U.S. Department of Education, Office of Technology. It's a document that I've been chewing on now for about a year and a half. It was unveiled at the White House a year and a half ago. This is our student today across the country in higher ed. These students look much different than the students that we may have had in the past. And those differences and meeting the needs of the students is of great concern across the country, not only to people in higher ed, but also to employers. And, oops, okay, now how do I go backwards? It's so fun using technology, talking about technology. So one of the points that is in this first report, there are two reports I'm going to talk to you about. One is from the Department of Education, Office of Technology. The other is called the Horizon Report. So the recommendations from the Reimagining the Role of Technology report, there were several of them. And one of them was for us to transform our ecosystem, which I think is a very interesting concept. And it has to do with institutions across the country really beginning to look at students as lifelong learners and to look at what we're preparing students for in higher education is the workplace, and keeping that in mind as we design how one goes about getting a degree. So part of that involves how we're doing our teaching, whether it's face-to-face or online, and part of that has to do with the assessing that we're doing to determine if students are actually learning what we've stated they're going to learn from our core learning outcomes. Now that time I went back, now I got it. I know how to go forward now. Part of this ecosystem has to do with looking at all the factors that are involved in serving this diverse population and the factors that they consider optimal for them to receive a higher education. All of this then influences how we teach in the classroom. Having a student-centered classroom is a shift for many faculty across the country. We're kind of used to thinking we have to be a sage on the stage, and this report is suggesting what many of us are already doing, and that is we really need to be the guide on the side and promote excellence in teaching through using evidence-based practices, to use technology to transform teaching by providing active engagement. So we want to start with that high quality lesson design. We want to build a collaborative learning community. And we want to do so by having authentic learning experiences and link to real world issues. Our teaching is only going to be as powerful ultimately as the assessments we have of our teaching. So it's so critical for institutions to embed a system where we are measuring how students are progressing toward core learning outcomes. And then we're using that information to inform our teaching. To do this, we really need a strong support for professional development. And as we go through these recommendations, I would invite you just to think about where we're at Park in relation to these recommendations. Some of them may fit, some of them may not fit. But these are recommendations that were developed by higher ed faculty across the country and by individuals in the workforce and by community partners. We definitely in higher ed want systems that support student success. We got a little sense on that first visual of the diversity of our students. Our students are also dispersed, which is why online learning has become so critically popular. So having a system where our academic policies are integrated into how it is we actually deliver instruction is one of the recommendations in this particular report, with a real focus on access and equity as key policy drivers, beginning at the federal level, which this report helps set the stage for, and then at the state and the local level. Leadership, institutional leadership is critical for these recommendations to go into place. And developing a clear vision about technology integration across all of the ecosystem. Not only just in the classroom, not only just with our data analyst, but institution-wide. And that we create strategic networks with leaders at other institutions. It's so informative. And I would invite all of you to review these reports, and I've provided the links for them, because there's lots and lots and lots of examples of how each of these recommendations are being realized at institutions across the country. And that's some of the fun part about the reading. That we also create strategies for networks with external systems that support lifelong learning, and I love this term, life-wide learning. So we're really reconceptualizing what the role of higher ed is. It reminds me a little bit, my background's in community college education, and it reminds me of rethinking what the function of community colleges are, because years ago when they were first started after World War II, their function was to be vocational schools. And that has definitely shifted and changed. And this report is inviting that shift and change to also occur within four-year institutions. So the future of higher education, some of the kind of summary of that particular report from the US Department of Education is to realize the potential for a student-centered, technology-enabled higher education ecosystem designed to meet the needs of all students. The report really emphasizes addressing retention, working on the whole issue of attrition and why it occurs, because it's going to be different institution to institution. So it's almost like, for me, looking at this report, kind of almost can be like a self-study of sorts. And embracing technology to increase flexibility, to reduce costs, and to validate student learning. The next report I want to share with you, I'm actually going to share with you through video. And it's a 2017 report from the Horizon Group, which is actually a combination of the EDUCAUSE and New Media Consortium. And I'm going to show you the 2016 report on video as to the 2017, because it's much shorter. And so it fits in with the presentation much better. The main points are very similar from 2016 to 2017 with just a little bit of tweaking, so I think it's still very appropriate.
The research on the NFC Horizon Report 2016 Higher Education Edition is jointly conducted by the NFC and the EDUCAUSE Learning Initiative and the EDUCAUSE program. What's on the 5-year horizon for higher education institutions? Which trends and technologies will drive educational change? How can we strategize effective solutions to difficult challenges? These questions steer the collaborative research and production of the NFC Horizon Report 2016 Higher Education Edition. The first part of the report examines 6 key trends accelerating technology adoption in higher education, ranging from short-term impact to long-term impact. Today's digital landscape has created opportunity for change for both our long-term impact trends, advancing cultures of innovation and rethinking how institutions work. The demands of the 21st century economy are requiring institutions to reimagine their curriculum, programs, and learning models. A shift to deeper learning approaches is expected to be a midterm impact trend. In order to remain motivated, students need to be able to make clear connections between the curriculum and the real world. This is increasingly being achieved through project-based learning and other active models. Growing focus on measuring learning is a short-term impact trend, which is a renewed interest in assessment and the wide variety of methods and tools that educators use to evaluate student progress and needs. In online and blended courses, another short-term impact trend, data reveal how student actions contribute to their progress in specific learning gains. Next, the report examines significant challenges in key technology adoption in higher education. Solvable challenges are those we understand and know how to solve. Improving digital literacy is considered solvable, as many projects to foster digital literacy for students and teachers are already underway. It is becoming clear that digital literacy is not a checklist of specific technical skills, but rather the development of critical thinking and reflection in various social and cultural contexts. A difficult challenge is one we understand, but for which solutions are elusive. Competing models of education is defined as difficult, as new education models are bringing unprecedented competition to traditional models of higher education. It's clear that capitalizing on emerging technology isn't enough. The new models need to use these tools to engage students on a deeper level. Wicked challenges are those that are complex to define, let alone address. The balance between our connected and unconnected lives, for example, is necessary to prevent students from getting lost in the sea of digital tools to encourage more mindful usage. Higher education institutions must emphasize this balance, prioritizing other developmental needs. Finally, the report focuses on important developments in educational technology for higher education while assigning technologies to adoption timelines. In 1 year or less, bring-your-own device is expected to be widely adopted across higher education. People now have an expectation to be able to use laptops, tablets, and smartphones for many aspects of their work life. In higher ed, the question is no longer whether to allow them, but how to most effectively integrate and support them. Augmented and virtual reality is expected to be adopted in the next 2 to 3 years in higher ed, as they are fostering more experimental learning. The mounting interest and investment in VR and AR technologies will benefit students in STEM disciplines or entrepreneurial pathways by stimulating real-world environments and giving students hands-on practice. The idea of working and living amongst robots is becoming less futuristic and more practical than ever. While robotics is still at least 4 years away from mainstream use in higher education, its potential uses for training are starting to gain traction. Students across the world are even getting in on the action by building their own robots, learning invaluable programming and engineering skills along the way. Download the full free NFC Horizon Report 2016 Higher Education Edition now at go.nfc.org/2016-HE.
So in summary, I've got some key points that will come up on the screen here in a moment. On the last slide. our opportunities in higher education are kind of like the flip coin of our challenges. Technology, it's so critically important that we understand that it can help our students, regardless of our content area, be more reflective practitioners and do much more problem solving and creative thinking and critical thinking than they might be able to do otherwise. I talked about this in 2 different sessions of my special interest group, is having an evaluative tool to determine whether or not you're using technology in a way that encourages and supports higher level thinking. So it's not just the use of technology that we're looking for, or keeping up with the trends of what's happening in technology, because that's going to shift and change over time and more rapidly than ever in the next 5 to 10 years. But are we using the technology in a meaningful way? Are we using it to serve diverse and dispersed our diverse and dispersed student body, to bridge learning experiences to those career pathways our students will be on as they graduate from our institution? If you'll remember, one of the initial statistics that amazed me was that 66% of students that graduate with a 4-year degree will have transferred a minimum of once between institutions. Are we addressing the achievement gap and the increased completion for diverse learners, especially our minority learners, our students with special needs? Are we using technology with an evidence-based foundation to improve teaching quality and student outcomes? Again, not using technology just for the sake of using technology, but using it in a meaningful way that really transforms the learning process. And investigating various ways that technology can support a systems-wide and broader ecosystem of collaborative solutions. Collaboration is emphasized over and over in both reports for student access, affordability, and degree to completion. My big takeaway from these 2 reports is that institutions of higher education cannot afford for any department to work separate from another department. Everyone has to work together in order to best serve our students. So I think I stayed in my 15-minute time frame. And this is question time. Question time. It's a lot to take in a short period.
So I know one of the challenges I've had is in trying to incorporate some basic technologies, some like phone apps. There's wonderful apps to give students to get feedback. But I have students that are at very different economic states right now. And I noticed I had them install the Kahoot app, and we're doing some stuff. It was really exciting. And I looked around the room, and 20% of my students don't have smartphones. So how do we, what are the best ways to transition? Because I know we're getting there. And just as people, you know, as time goes on, yes, those technologies will become completely mainstream pervasive. But until we get there, how do you deal with the disparate levels of students' capacity for technology as they're transitioning?
Yeah, that really speaks to student accessibility. And I would kind of throw this back out again, because I don't have any magic answers. But I think collaborative inquiry and collaborative problem solving, I see it happen on this campus all the time. I am so proud to work at Park University because we're doing so many of these things. And when I talk to my colleagues from throughout the country and I tell them how integrated we are in terms of our efforts toward technology integration, they're amazed. But one example that I think was a similar issue that got resolved was access to computers in general. Now we have stations all over campus. So I think having a group that is a clearinghouse for issues that get in the way of accessibility is pretty important. And whether that arises from a student group, or if it arises in ETAC, or if it arises from the FCI advisory group, it's kind of an exciting opportunity to figure that out. And the other thing I discovered, and actually I learned a lot of this from Gail and just observing in her classrooms, is throw it back to the students. You know, it gets back to us being collaborators and guides on the side instead of sage on the stage. It's really hard for me to think I don't have to have the answers, because serving my students is so important to me. But when I see a set of students get a swivel and just be told, you figure out how to work this, they take so much more ownership in it. The same thing happened when I was doing a presentation for the School of Ed and was practicing in the Watson Literacy Center, and couldn't figure out how to do some stuff, and kept asking the student worker to come up and help me. And then I went on to do my presentation. When I was finished, she came over and thanked me for allowing her to assist me in figuring out how to do all that, because she felt like she was a part of the presentation now. So those little lessons are out there, and our students are just like we are. They represent a variety of different skills, a variety of different levels of accessibility. And so we can do this together. So that's part of that ecosystem shift, is recognizing that.
Are there any questions online? Yeah, sure.
This is a question you might say, it's too long. I'll get back. I'll get back to you on that. But in some of your meetings, and you alluded to this in your presentation, you talked about kind of having an evaluative framework for helping us make sure that the use is intentional, or the video also set in mindful use.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, well, how do you define that?
Mm-hmm.
So it was the SANR.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess my question to you is, what's your biggest takeaway from that model in terms of, if we're evaluating whether you're trying to integrate technology into our teaching, what would that model tell us is the most important sort of question to ask to check our motivations?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. Emily's referring to the SAMR model, which is a popular model, SAMR. It was actually developed by a chemistry teacher at Harvard when he was teaching his undergraduate students, and he just felt like they weren't getting it. And chemistry can be a tough class, and especially if that's not your major area. And so he just started experimenting, and he said, okay, I'm having students put their paper, give their paper to me through the learning management system instead of handing it to me. That's a substitution. It really is much more handy for all of us, but it's a substitution. It enhances the process a little bit in terms of efficiency. Augmentation. If he gives an assignment and asks them to do it in a Google Doc and to work together and share, and then, he would have access to that. Well, that's definitely augmenting the process and the learning process. And then he went on to modification. How about if I not only have them collaborate, but I also have them put together a web quest on the topic to further develop a knowledge base, provide depth and breadth to it. That's really modifying and transforming that assignment. And then how about redefining it? They can put it on YouTube and share it with the world. That's what professionals do. We get peer feedback about our thinking. We can think about our thinking, and it's a wonderful metacognitive process, but when we invite our peers in to provide us feedback, that opens up a whole new world to us. And so that transforms the learning process. So one of the things that the developer said, and he's got a very long name with 6 syllables that I never can pronounce. I'm going to call him Dr. P, but you can easily Google SAMR and he'll pop up. There's many, many videos. He said, not only did I learn how to engage students, increase critical thinking, really move up on Bloom's taxonomy, but I became a better teacher. SAMR model is just one model. I only introduced one model because, you know, the SIGs are so short. But that's my takeaway. I can become a better teacher. And it's a lifelong process.
We do have an online question, Judy. It's from Sylvia. So this is my question. Can you give one example of what are the best activities to do with technology that would increase critical thinking?
So the question is, what is the best technology I can use in my classroom to increase critical thinking? And that's going to depend on your content area. You know, contextual factors are so important. It's going to depend on your content area. It's going to depend upon your particular student body. But I would look at a way to throw that back to the students. And whatever the content is, whatever the topic is, say, tell me about how you can go about investigating this topic. That opens up a whole new world in terms of the digital literacy piece that they emphasized over and over is so critical. Can you just use any source you find on the internet? No. Why? Can you just use any YouTube video? No. Why? You know, how many YouTube videos did you look through before you chose this one? And what was it about this one that captured the topic? So you're really engaging the student and putting it back on them and asking them how they might learn best. I think another thing is that giving choice. When you have a particular assignment built around a particular learning outcome, rather than just having one way for students to share their knowledge, give them more ways. Give them ways to demonstrate to you what it is they know. Where are we at on time?
We actually have run over on time.
Okay.
But, you know, we want to be respectful of everyone's time. So, Sylvia did want to thank you, and she liked your idea of choice. So, thank you everyone for joining us today. Let's go ahead and give Judi a round of applause.
Thank you everyone for joining us online. We'll go ahead and wrap up today's Innovation Exchange. If you would like the emails of the PowerPoint, we will have it online. So just go out to innovatepark.org and we will get this up as soon as possible. Thanks for joining us.